You're having a good night with your friends, and you're enjoying their company at the casino. Some of your friends try to convince you to play the roulette, and you think you might as well do it, considering you have been on a winning streak all night. So, you choose your number and go all in. The dealer spins the wheel, the ball goes round and round the table, you follow it closely with your eyes. Red. No, black. Red again. And eventually, the ball lands on 0. You win nothing, and the house takes all your money. You might not even realize it, but our modern world would collapse the moment the number 0 would fade out of existence. It is a number that represents nothing, but we are incredibly dependent on it. Grab a receipt and look at the numbers. They mean something. Now, imagine that all the zeros on that receipt would fade away. The entire meaning of the receipt would change. Our economy cannot work without zeros. The device you're watching this video on is dependent on zeros. All of our computer systems use a binary language of zeros and ones to tell the computer what to do. So, your whole world is running on 0. But where did it even come from? The idea of 0 goes back to ancient times. The earliest recordings of the idea of 0 can be traced back to 3000 BCE to the civilizations of the Indus Valley. But the idea was not used in practice. It was just an idea. Here is why. Imagine that you're a merchant in ancient Egypt and you're selling fruits and vegetables. You can have customers wanting 1, 2, or 3 watermelons. Maybe someone that really likes watermelons will ask for 10. But as someone dealing with physical goods, there is no real need for the number 0. You can sell 1 watermelon and buy 3 pieces of bread, but you cannot sell 0 watermelons and buy 0 loaves of bread. The ancient Egyptians did have an idea about the number 0 and started using the word Nefer around 1740 BCE, 1300 years after they started counting with numbers. Nefer was used to describe the base level of buildings and temples, and was thus a fitting representation of the number 0. A base is where something starts, just as the number 0 is the starting point of the counting system. But there was no better place than India for 0 to gain its status as a proper number. You see, in Buddhism, there is the idea of nirvana. Buddhists believe nirvana is the release from all suffering and the never-ending cycle of birth and rebirth. Nirvana is the ultimate goal of Buddhism, and you could say it is a state of nothingness. So, the idea of nothing being something has always been a part of Indian culture. It was there around the 5th century CE that the concept of 0 as a numerical system and a placeholder in mathematical notation emerged. Indian mathematicians and astronomers devised the Hindu-Arabic numeral system, a revolutionary system that utilized 10 digits, 0 to 9, and the concept of 0 now as a distinct digit. This innovative system introduced the concept of place value, where the position of a digit determines its value in a number, making arithmetic calculations more efficient and enabling the representation of large numbers with fewer symbols. However, the concept of 0 didn't spread rapidly beyond India. It took several centuries for 0 to gain acceptance in other parts of the world, particularly the Middle East, where it was adopted by Arab mathematicians and scholars. It was through their extensive trade and cultural exchanges with India that 0 eventually found its way to Europe during the Middle Ages. The arrival of 0 in Europe was met with skepticism and resistance. It challenged established notions of mathematics and raised philosophical and theological questions about the nature of nothingness and the absence of quantity. In 1299, 0 was banned in Florence as it encouraged fraud. You see, a 0 could easily be changed into a 9, or a 0 could be added to any receipt. Some European scholars even considered 0 as a concept that was dangerous and incompatible with the Christian belief system, as it was seen as a symbol of emptiness and nothingness, which clashed with the idea of God's creation and abundance. So, 0 and nothing are related concepts, but they are not exactly the same. 0 is a numerical value that represents the absence of quantity on a numerical scale. It is a digit used in the decimal numbering system to try and represent the concept of nothing in terms of quantity. But what is nothing? Nothing, or you could say no thing, is the complete absence of anything and everything. Think of an empty box with a lid on it. Is there nothing in the box? Maybe in the practical sense of the word, the box is empty, but the box is actually as full as a box can be. It is filled with particles and atoms, and there is oxygen, nitrogen, and there are dust particles filling the box. So the box is not empty, and thus there is not nothing in there. But is there something somewhere that is truly empty, truly nothing? let's take a look at the universe. The universe is an immensely big void. It is the big empty, and there is nothing between the celestial bodies. But even space isn't empty. There is space dust, and there are packages of photons shooting out of stars through our universe into our eyes. So no, even space isn't empty. Even a vacuum isn't filled with nothing. There is no oxygen or nitrogen in a vacuum. There are no dust particles in a vacuum. You would say that is empty. But of course, if you think you know something, quantum physics shows up and tells you that there are in fact so-called virtual particles in a vacuum. Is nothing even a thing? Well, the concept of nothingness has always captivated the human mind. Throughout history, philosophers, scientists, theologians, and artists have pondered upon the elusive nature of nothingness and its implications for our understanding of existence, reality, and the nature of being. In literature, the concept of nothingness has been used to convey a sense of emptiness, loss, or nihilism. Writers such as Samuel Beckett, Franz Kafka, and Albert Camus have used the theme of nothingness in their works to depict the absurdity and meaninglessness of human existence, as well as the search for meaning in a world that lacks inherent purpose. What is nothing? Is it a mere absence or negation of being, a void or emptiness that lacks any intrinsic existence? Or is it a meaningful concept that has existential significance? One of the first Western philosophers that thought about nothingness was Parmenides in the 5th century BC. In his expression, nothing comes from nothing, he argued that nothing cannot exist because, to speak of a thing, one has to speak of a thing that exists. Since we can speak of a thing in the past, this thing must still exist now. This idea can actually be found in physics. Think of the law of conservation of energy. The total amount of energy in a system cannot change. You can't take energy out of a system, and you cannot put more in. So, nothing comes from nothing. So, what is the relationship between zero and nothing? Are they the same? Let's take a look at mathematics. Zero is well defined in mathematics. It is an integer preceding the number 1. It is neither positive nor negative. It is an even number because it is divisible by 2. You can add and subtract 0 from any number, and you can multiply something by 0. But you cannot divide by 0, as it is not possible to multiply it with something to find the numerator. Nothing is defined in mathematics as well. To find nothing, we have to take a look at set theory, the field of mathematics that keeps itself busy with the collection of objects called a set. In set theory, a set is notated like this. A set can contain many values or even things. You can, for instance, have a set of fruits with apples, bananas, and oranges, or a set of even numbers. In set theory, the universe is denoted by U and contains in itself all the sets as elements that you want to use. Each set has its own cardinality, which is the number of elements in a set. For example, the set of fruits has cardinality 3. There are a couple of special sets, one of which is the empty set, denoted by a set with no elements inside of it. The empty set is, well, empty, and has cardinality 0 because there are no elements inside of it. Now, let's construct the set with the element 0 inside of it, which has a cardinality of 1. We can now compare 0 with nothing and conclude that set theory tells us that 0 and nothing are not exactly the same things. The concept of 0 and nothing are definitely related. The idea of 0 came from the idea of nothingness and is a way for us to quantify the empty state. A common way of pronouncing 0 is nil, coming from the word nihil in Latin, meaning nothing. But 0 and nothing are not the same. 0 is a defined thing, whereas nothing is an idea and a concept of the absence of everything. Nothing cannot be something. Nothing cannot even be an idea, for an idea is something. True nothing cannot exist as long as the idea of it is alive. If you want nothing to exist, I suggest we all forget about it. So, the next time you spin the roulette, make sure there is not nothing to be made.